Blizzard has let a lot of people into the beta, and one of the things they're regularly saying is, Preacher, this Torghast ain't like the one you showed me. And they're right. Torghast has changed quite a lot. Let's take a quick look. Everything is going to change between the alpha and the beta. That's always going to be a thing. But Torghast is one of those things that was given to us so early, as it's going to be a major part of our endgame when Shadowlands goes live. And of course, Torghast was received overwhelmingly positively by everybody who tried it out. And recently, Blizzard sent out an email saying there were over 70,000 runs of Torghast, even with the very few people that managed to get into the Shadowlands alpha. So with that, Blizzard have put in a ton more effort. They have changed the rules. Now there will be 2 weekly quests which get you your legendary stuff, and of course then the endless twisting corridors, which are now going to be free. No keys to get in there, despite the fact that keys still drop in the maw from a bygone system. Now I will point out here, there is some controversy, as right now the twisting corridors are dropping legendary crafting materials, leading people to believe that you may need to run Torghast over 100 times a week in order to get the maximum amount of legendary crafting materials available. Now, thankfully, Blizzard has gone on record several times saying the twisting corridors are going to be purely for cosmetics. Only the very, very short, quick, easy runs that you get per week are going to be the ones to give you actual power upgrades. So I would hope that that is just something from a bygone system. Now, getting into Torghast itself, it has changed. Let's talk about your introduction to Torghast. Shortly after going to the maw, you're going to receive a quest to say, hey, find out about Torghast. After talking to our NPC inside the maw, they're going to say, hey, over there's the entrance to Torghast, go and take a look. Then they're going to present you with a quest to save important NPCs whose souls have been trapped inside the Torghast Tower by the jailer. Now, in practicality, what they're actually going to do is introduce you to each of the 6 different themes of Torghast. Torghast is broken up into themes, and it's done in 6 level blocks. Every 6 levels will contain a brand new theme, finished off by a boss on the 6th floor. Then, floor 7, or whatever it might be after the 6, will then give you a brand new theme for the next 6 floors, again, resulting in a boss. Then you'll get a brand new theme. These 6 block increments all follow the same theme. And that theme could be one of 6 things. I know I'm saying 6 a lot, but that is just the nature of the way it is. So in each one of these, it may be fire themed. So the next 6 floors will all be fire themed, and your soul will burn and give you damage. Another theme might be something about ghouls and ghosts dropping black pools of sludge all over the floor. Now, don't get me wrong here. It is important to introduce the player to the types of enemies they're going to be dealing with. However, doing 6 runs of 6 floors back to back, that's not a particularly great experience. I don't think it's necessary. The rules of Torghast remain the same regardless of what theme you are in. Therefore, there's really no need to expose the player to absolutely everything they're going to see before they get started. It may feel more comfortable, but ultimately going into a new area is going to be fine. The rules remain the same, you know exactly what you need to do. It also means that it makes Torghast a little boring. Let me explain. Torghast is about the rise in power. The sequential growth of your character throughout a Torghast run, which can go in a number of ways. Sometimes you may fail. That's okay. Sometimes you may become super powerful very early. Sometimes you may need to work at it and then you find success. The problem is that usually takes more than 6 floors in order to get there. Or at least it did. If you make people run 6 runs back to back of 6 different themes, it makes Torghast really boring and kind of cumbersome. It's taking a lot of time, depending on how often and how people play Torghast, such as clearing every single mob. You're talking maybe 30 minutes a run, even if it's a very easy 0 to 6 floor run. That means that if you're doing that 6 times, that's like 3 hours worth of Torghast. Not only that, 6th floor, you're not really getting to that super powerful stage. You're not getting to that point where your character is becoming crazy and wacky and outlandish and all the cool stuff that I know exists in Torghast. In fact, the game is going to kick you out after the 6th floor, so it starts again, meaning that your character got slightly more powerful, but not to the stage where it was crazy fun like people are expecting to happen in Torghast if they've been following videos on it. And that's a bit of a problem, because you're going to do that 6 times in a row before they finish the quest line, and then unlock the Twisting Corridors, which allows you to do 18 floors. Until that point, you're not going to be able to do it. Now, you may be worried about alts here, but I can tell you Blizzard have confirmed that on an alt character, you're not going to have to do this. But it doesn't take away that on a new character, this is kind of a bummer. It's a real long, drawn-out process that's practically unnecessary, and the quest in there is inconsequential. It actually doesn't really take effect until the very last floors of a certain amount of runs. What you end up with is players being a little bit resentful of Torghast, which is the feedback I've had from players who have joined the beta, dived into Torghast, and then gone, actually, this is kind of a pain. I spent the last 3 hours unlocking the Twisting Corridors, and it really was a drag. For those reasons that we just talked about, such as it takes longer than 6 floors for the run to really get going, and people never get to experience that during this introduction. Remember, the rules remain the same. Blizzard could quite easily just have the player do 3 runs instead of all 6, showing them 3 different themes, showing them that the rules all remain the same, and also get the quest done more efficiently, and provide earlier access to either weekly stuff that they need to do for legendaries, or to the Twisting Corridors if they want to take part in a longer run. Again, it does not matter what the theme is, Torghast works the same way in all things. Another change Blizzard have made is to increase what is on the store. So inside Torghast there is what they call a broker. There are a variety of brokers in there, and you can make the decision to kill the brokers if you want for a large amount of currency, and then pray that that broker wasn't supposed to appear later in the run, and you can actually buy things from a different broker. Now, what is the purpose of the broker? The broker is there to offset the fact that you may have got screwed on the power choices that you got on your normal run. Remember, the way Torghast works is there will be preset powers, you usually get 1 at the start of the run, and then there'll be more dotted about the levels. And you have to make the choice as a player, do I want to clear more enemies in the hopes of finding a power, or do I even have to skip on certain potential powers because the enemies are too tough? That is a regularly and fun part of Torghast, is making those decisions. The broker then comes into play because if you didn't get any great powers in those early floors, then when you get to a broker level, which usually contains either several powers or at least a couple, you can then spend your currency that you had to pick up in order to offset the fact that you didn't have anything good. You could pick up some raw stats typically, along with a number of consumables which will help you in your run. They may add to your death counter. If you had a couple of nasty deaths and you're worried about the Taragru coming to eat you and end your run, you can spend currency in order to get some you could spend that currency in order to increase your death counter, making things a little bit safer going forward. But you may also want to pick up a damage potion. Perhaps you've got a lot of defensive powers. You're actually very strong, unlikely to be killed, yet your damage is very weak. So picking up a damage potion might help you with that boss who eventually will overwhelm you simply because you can't DPS him enough. Perhaps you need to skip some more mobs, so you pick up some stealth potions to go along with it. Now, in the original version of the broker, they did include some powers, but these were the stat powers, and many of us asked for them to be removed. And the reason for that is it makes you absurdly more powerful if you get to a broker level. If you get to a broker level and you have some currency, increasing your crit by 5%, your health by 20%, your verse by 5%, your haste by 5%, your mastery by 5%, is an extremely large power jump. Let's not forget here, and this is important, that the broker also sells power orbs. Power orbs are something that you can throw down and you'll get a power option like you would get in a normal run. They're very expensive, but they may contain exactly what you need in order to get your run going, and also, importantly, they may not. I previously said that we asked for the stat stuff to be removed because it just made you too powerful. There were some runs where basically if you could get to a broker level, you were kind of set for the rest of the run because your character's power leap after getting to a broker level was just a little too strong. There wasn't a linear increase in difficulty. Suddenly you were very powerful. Now here's where Blizzard may have just kind of lost the way in what Torghast is supposed to be, what it is designed to be, and where the original idea came from. And that is a roguelike adventure. That's what it's supposed to be. It's totally fine that the weeklies are pretty easy. Not everybody is going to like Torghast, and that's fine. So those guys can get that stuff done, get their legendary stuff, and be on their way. But for the people who enjoy Torghast, there are definitely things that Blizzard have done which they're probably not going to like. One of them is the addition of more specific powers to the broker. What do I mean? Well, previously the broker just had stat upgrades on him. Now the broker actually contains specific deterministic powers, things that usually are a random choice from a power orb. And they're also way cheaper than the power orbs themselves. Actually, half the price. This really is crazy. Why would you pay twice the price of the currency that you pick up in Torghast for a random chance at a power, when for half the price I can buy a very specific power, and often these are very, very powerful. They have gone further into making you more and more powerful if you can get to a broker level. Well, how often is a broker level? Good question. 3 floors. Every 3 floors. The way it works in the block of 6 that you will do is on the 3rd floor, that will be a specific broker level, and then on the next 3rd floor, which would be the 6th floor, you then have a boss level which also contains a broker. What does all this mean then? The only real way to play Torghast in its current state is to get as much currency as you possibly can just for the broker level, and then you have won. And that happens pretty much every single time. In fact, I have not had a run since this was implemented where I lost. This risks turning Torghast into a 100% win rate. Does that sound familiar? It does. One of the reasons people hated Warfronts was that they were practically unlosable. They're a waste of time. They're just something you need to go into and get done. I would have hoped Blizzard would have learned their lesson that people don't enjoy massive, obvious win rates and stuff like this, especially stuff that can be done solo. The chance of failure is what makes it exciting, and my favourite Torghast runs are the ones where there was some struggle before we overcame the odds, and the ones where I lost. That is fine too, especially in the twisting corridors where the rewards are only cosmetic. That's something I could deal with. The other side of that coin of being always winning makes it way less enjoyable, way less fun. After a certain amount of time, just becoming absurdly powerful every single time is going to wear thin on a lot of players. The element of risk is very important. Now, don't get me wrong, roguelike adventures have had stores in the past. Nearly all of them do. However, what they don't do is make it so that you win if you get to a store. A game like Faster Than Light might have multiple stores on a single level. However, the options they have are very, very limited. That means you could visit all of the stores and not get anything worthwhile. That's part of the game. Going into a store in, say, Binding of Isaac, you're risking throwing away potential money or resources on something that you actually don't want and doesn't benefit you in any way. Similar with any other game that has a store is you have to make a decision. Will this pay off later, or is this something that I want to pass by because it doesn't provide me stuff that is just fundamentally always good? The brokers in Torghast always provide something that is good. Always, 100%, and typically multiple things that are always good. They're always going to pay off, and they're always an immediate advantage. This means that playing Torghast is just about farming currency right now, and that's not really the way they want to go. It risks making it very boring, 100% win rate, and not what Torghast was designed to be originally. The whole idea of the brokers is simply to make a choice earlier in the run. While some players will always farm absolutely everything, some players won't. The idea of the broker is when you click a power orb, perhaps you're presented with 3 options. One of those options could be the currency, known as Phantasma, but it could also be something that's good right now and something that is going to be good later on. It is then up to the player to decide, do I take the power that is good to me right now? What position am I in? Am I in a risky position where I want to take this and I might not be able to do the next floor without this power? Or do I take the one that I know does pay off later on? There's a very high chance of that paying off later on, and I might not see this power again. Or do I risk everything, take some extra Phantasma, and hope the broker provides something better in the random orb power that he might provide me? There's an element of risk there. He might provide nothing at all, and that's a good thing. That's all the decision-making process that you want in a roguelike adventure, and it doesn't really have that right now, and what people have been feeding back to me at least is that every time they do Torghast, they get very strong, but it's also really, really easy. Now, on that note, how are they doing the Torghast endless runs? Well, of course, they're not endless. No, in fact, they're currently sticky to 18 floors, which in my opinion is way too short. You want to get silly and absurd if you're having a run like that. Right now, after 18 floors, or 3 different themes, because that's 6 level banding, you get kicked out, and then it tells you to start again. However, they're using the checkpoint system that they trialed in alpha to say, when do you want to start? So it will record where you were and say, okay, you started, you got to floor 18, so now you can start on floor 14. and you start at floor 14 with no powers and go again. The circle of life on this is that, again, if you can make it to the broker floor and you farm as much currency as you can, chances are once you hit the broker floor, you're then won. You've won the game. And you can go all the way for another 18 floors up to floor 22, whatever it might be, and just keep going, right? You can just keep going over and over again. And the real challenge of Torghast becomes nothing to do with how many floors you can complete or how hard it is to get there. It's just the first 3 floors. Every single time. Can I make it to the broker level within 3 floors? And if so, I win. Now, if Blizzard wants to go down that road, fine, that's okay. But as somebody who played it when it didn't have any of these things, I can tell you now, personally, I found it considerably better when it wasn't a guaranteed win rate, when my gameplay wasn't purely determined about how much money I can get before I hit a broker, and then just winning the game after that. That was not the experience I had in Torghast. That's not what I fell in love with. And I understand that when you get such positive feedback about a new feature of the game, that maybe you want to throw more and more in that to encourage it. People like getting super powerful in Torghast. Let's make that more prevalent. The thing is, if you're super powerful all the time, it loses its fun, loses its variety, loses its flavor. It's only when we had a really good run coming and then got really powerful, that's when it really started to pop off. But that's contrasted by those runs that we failed, those runs that were really hard, those runs where we had to struggle to get things going, and then getting the payoff at the end after earning that payoff. Many of you might enjoy it if it's just 100% win rate and you can just keep going and going and going. I happen to believe in the Warfront situation is that many people will find it lackluster compared to what it can be. So that's why when you get the beta, for those of you who are still waiting, hopefully you'll get in soon, your Torghast may look a little different than the Torghast that I showed you. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.